Because that is hyperbolic.
No, it might be hyperbolic for you as a white man.
Oh, okay.
It's certainly
So
not hyperbolic for me as a Latino. No, I'm not being racist.
I went on CNN last night and a famous media personality crashed out on me for daring to have an opinion while being a white man. We're going to break this down and so much more on today's episode of the Brad versus Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas and across our media, politics, and the internet, all from an independent perspective, and apparently also sometimes talk about me when I'm in the media or I'm across the internet for different controversies I'm involved in, like a clip that's going viral right now from my appearance on CNN Newsnight, 10 p.m. Eastern. You can tune in with Abby Phillip, who I think is great, hosts a really diverse panel of perspectives. I really enjoyed being on the show. You can tell I'm still in the hotel room. I'll be heading home later this evening on not many hours of sleep, because by the time I finished up the show, I was so hyped I didn't fall asleep till nearly 2 a.m. Anyway, though, a couple really important and interesting moments from the broadcast that I want to recap with you guys, including one that's getting a lot of attention and being shared across conservative media right now because one of the other panelists, Ana Navarro, who is one of the very prominent hosts of The View and kind of a liberal Democrat at this point, though once upon a time she was a Republican strategist. But we had a bit of a disagreement about immigration and rhetoric regarding the Trump administration, and she took it to an unfortunate level. And then I called her out on it. So we're going to watch that clip and then discuss.
Millions of people out there protesting in small cities and big cities, small protests and huge protests, defying the fear, defying the reign of terror.
You're definitely being hyperbolic. You talk about a reign of terror when the doomsday alarm from Democrats or from media critics is always at a 10. It doesn't hit the same, honestly.
Also, I want to respond to you saying that I was hyperbolic when I talked about a reign of terror.
Because that is hyperbolic.
No, it might be hyperbolic for you as a white man.
Oh, okay.
It's certainly not hyperbolic for me as a Latino. No, I'm not being racist.
It's incredible to dismiss my opinion for being a white man.
No, I'm not dismissing your opinion. I am telling you that what the Latino community, the brown community in America.
Speak in one voice.
Okay, well, let me speak with my voice. I mean, you said I was being hyperbolic. Let me respond.
Racially, sure.
I'm not. You being a white man as an insult.
When you invoke it to dismiss my
being
opinion,
a white man as an insult.
When you invoke it,
do you think Latinos are living under circumstances that other people may not be right now in this country?
We're about to have a whole conversation about that very thing. But I just want to make a point that, Brad, all she's saying is that her view of the situation is different from yours. I don't think that's an insult.
She basically said I'm wrong because I'm a white man.
She just said I see it.
I see it differently.
She said I see it differently from you, which is not an insult. It's not, and it's also not a racial insult.
It's also not an explanation why I'm wrong.
So, wow, this was an interesting experience. I didn't exactly see this plot twist coming, but it was fascinating to me because I guess the identity politics stuff is not over, at least in some media circles, because Ana Navarro, who is very prominent, very influential, literally is still doing this, still thinks this is an argument. And I tried to explain in the show, but it is hard to get in a word edgewise sometimes, and you know how it is. But I stand by 100% what I said, that we were having a spirited discussion about a point. She claimed that the Trump administration was a reign of terror. And while I've been very critical of Trump on certain issues, I do think that's a hyperbolic statement. I also think Ana is prone to hyperbole in her rhetoric. So I said it was hyperbolic, which, by the way, is not like me throwing bombs at her. It's just a little bit of pushback. And then she wanted to refute that accusation of being hyperbolic. And then in the very next sentence, she says, no, you're wrong. I'm not hyperbolic. You as a white man. So hold on. We just skipped any facts. We just skipped any argument, and we just cited my identity to dismiss my opinion or suggest that I'm incorrect. That is why I called that racist, because that is racist. That is discriminatory. And more importantly than anything, it's not an argument. She didn't outline points or data that support her assertion. She didn't explain why she's correct. She didn't even do something that I would have found far less objectionable, where she could have said, well, as a Latina woman, I have a different perspective and I feel this. I still don't love that because that is kind of using your identity, but at least then you're not like belittling or dismissing someone for their identity. You're just talking about yourself. But no, she came in hot with the, you're a white man, you don't get it, blah, 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 blah. And I wasn't going to stand for that because that's not acceptable. That is racism. It is discrimination. And I'm not triggered. It doesn't really bother me what she thinks of me, but I was going to call that out in the moment for what it was. And then I do felt that she engaged in gaslighting by trying to pretend that that's not what she did or not what she said. I wasn't dismissing your opinion. I mean, you were though. Like, you guys just watched the clip. You can rewind on YouTube or on audio podcasts. I don't really think there's any way to hear that other than the invocation of white man after your statement is wrong. As a white man, we skipped over the argument, we skipped over the facts as the logic, and we just went to my identity and my demographic boxes. Yeah, you're dismissing my opinion on the basis of my race and my gender. That's discriminatory. There's really no, you're gaslighting us when you say, well, being a white man is not an insult. Of course not. But invoking it as a reason that somebody is wrong is an insult and is racist. Like, I don't know how to explain this. It's extremely clear if you just swap the seats. So imagine she had given an opinion on something and I said, no, you don't get it. As a woman, you just don't understand this. Or, as a Latina, you just can't understand this. Everyone would be like, holy crap, that's so racist. They'd probably kick me off the show and have me leave in the commercial break. Seriously. And I would never do that because it's rude, it's discriminatory, and it's a non-argument. It doesn't prove that someone's wrong or incorrect simply because you point out their demographic traits. Like, what are we doing here? That's the other thing that bothered me about it. She kept saying like, oh, well, this is affecting Latino community the most. And I acknowledge that Hispanic people of Hispanic backgrounds are more affected by the immigration debate. Sure. But there is no such thing as the Latino or Latina perspective, let alone Latinx, on an issue, right? This is the collectivizing nature of identity politics that's so empty, so vacuous. Actually, they're all individuals and they have all sorts of different opinions, and millions of Latinos or Latinas voted for Trump. Millions support his immigration policies, and they're not like wrong or traitors to their race, or their opinion is not somehow less valid. And she doesn't speak for like, oh, well, Latinos believe this or feel this way. You really can only speak for yourself. Or you could cite polling data or something to assert and say, most do. But even then, it also gets to the point of why what she said was such a non sequitur, such a non-argument. Because there are many Latino people out there in America who would agree with my statement. And if one of them was sitting there rather than me, who, yes, I'm white, shoot me, I wouldn't be more or less correct. It would still be the same assertion, the same argument. This is how identity politics invades logic and then kind of roots it out like a parasite and destroys it. It substitutes invocations of identity for reason itself. And that's why I think it's such a destructive and harmful way to approach the world. And actually, my boyfriend pointed this out to me after the show. I have to give him credit. He said that the irony of this, and you guys probably won't get this because it's just, I showed you a brief clip, is that this came in a segment where we were discussing Democratic messaging and comments by Barack Obama and the Democrats need to adjust their messaging strategies. And if Ana Navarro is any example, they most certainly do. What do you guys think? Do you agree with me or do you side with Ana on this one? Let me know in the comments. Do make sure to subscribe if you are yet. Hit that like button while you're at it. Remember, you can watch the Brad versus Everyone podcast here on YouTube, yes, but you can also tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Love to have you over there with me as well. And remember to send in some voice notes for our Voicemail Friday episodes, where I react to your woke horror stories, your personal life scenarios, and your questions that you have for me, and I answer them on the show. Now, guys, up next, I do want to do something fun and read some of the hate comments and hate mail that I got after the show. One, of course, actually came before the show and was from my sister. Right before I got on air, I received this lovely text. Make sure they give you enough makeup. Brutal. Savage. It's just a joke, obviously. We just rib each other, but I thought that was really funny. It made me laugh out loud. I was in the makeup chair. Some of the things I received after the show, though, weren't quite as funny. For example, I received one email that said, "You're a head," as the subject line, and said, "Triggered much? You exemplify everything wrong with white men." So it's not helping your case that this isn't about race. This isn't racist. This is about my identity. If you're saying I represent everything wrong with a huge swath of the demographic trait of the population. Like, what? Seriously? Kind of proving my point there. And I don't really agree that I was triggered. Like, I just wanted to call out what I thought was harmful rhetoric. I wasn't really reduced to an emotional pile of tears or anything. Like, I don't care. I wasn't traumatized. I was not even really offended. I just think it should be called out. I don't care. Like, I'll go back on. I'll talk to Ana again. Like, there's no triggering in the room with us. I just will call out when people engage in hypocritical and toxic approaches to political discourse. I got some interesting comments from some of the gays who apparently watch CNN and weren't big fans of me. One person tweeted in the aftermath of the show, "Brad Polumbo is a nasty queen." Someone else said, "Brad Polumbo excels at whining, but lacks any substance. Weak sauce." This one was kind of creepy. "Brad Polumbo is a gay green goblin in flesh paint." Oh, that's oddly specific and descriptive and slightly concerning. Another dude tweeted, "Stunned today how utterly stupid at Brad Polumbo is and how much he twists facts and disrespects, attacks, and talks over women when he's a guest on a show." They were guests on the show as well, and I did with them the same way I would do with any, as I did last time with some male co-panelists that I argued with. I had the exact type of exchange. I treated them the same way. There's nothing sexist about this. And again, it's ironic because, like, one of the women attacked me in a way that you could arguably say was like identity based or what have you. I certainly didn't treat them differently because they're women. I am an equal opportunity sasser and interrupter. Another person says, "You don't know what it's like to be Latino. That's the point, queer boy. Spare everyone the fake offended look." Oh, I mean, I don't remember claiming to know what it was like to be Latino because I am not. I remember making a claim about immigration policy in the state of the Trump administration and then being told I'm wrong because I'm white. So good luck on that one. And it is funny. Obviously, this is a person who was gay himself. So he's like, thinks he can just say slurs or whatever. I mean, I don't really care, but interesting how quickly they go to that. Up next, the conversation did turn a little bit more into policy weeds. And one thing that came up was the Medicaid cuts that will have millions of people losing coverage thanks to the Republicans' big, beautiful bill. I've done a pretty deep dive on this on the show already, but I did want to play you this clip and discuss very briefly.
In all of the polls is that Democratic policies absolutely are incredibly popular.
Yeah, when you count the number of stuff.
Making sure to keep millions of people so that they can have their health care, so they're not kicked off of their health care, making sure that seniors and veterans and children be able to eat, because Republicans want to steal the food, taking it out of their mouths.
Question. Should people who are ineligible for Medicaid be removed?
Democrats want to defend that.
Should people who are ineligible, for example, their income is too high?
Who do you mean
Well, the CBO estimates that millions of the people who would be removed by the Big Beautiful Bill, it's a fact, people would lose their health care. It's because they are literally ineligible for Medicaid because of the income requirement.
Hold on a second. Let me just make one quick point on that, and then I'll let you in, Phil. I mean, I think it would be a little disingenuous to suggest that is the bulk of the people.
Several million.
But out of 11, somewhere between 11 and 17 million Americans are estimated to be losing their insurance. That population is not a majority. It's not the lion's share. So there are a bunch of different types of people who would lose insurance, and most of them are not ineligible.
So this was an interesting exchange to me because particularly the co-panelist Maria, the Democratic strategist, called me out and said, that's not true. When I made the claim that several million of the people who will be removed from Medicaid under the big beautiful bill will lose their Medicaid because they are not eligible. And the big beautiful bill will increase eligibility verification. And so they're just going to be removed because they do not meet, maybe their income is too high. Maybe there's other things that where they're not supposed to be enrolled. They were improperly enrolled, or they were once eligible and they no longer are. So these eligibility checks will have them removed from the program. And she instantly said, that's not true, dismissing me, citing the Congressional Budget Office. Now, here's the thing about me, y'all. I don't just say shit. I don't just pop off. Like, I don't just make claims that I can't back up or don't have receipts for. So here is a letter from the Congressional Budget Office saying, CBO estimates that enacting the Medicaid provisions will increase the number of people without health insurance by 7.8 million in 2034. Of that number, about 2.2 million people would become uninsured because of other provisions in H.R. 1, including provisions increasing the frequency of verification of eligibility to enroll in Medicaid. So yes, millions of people would be removed from Medicaid under the Big Beautiful Bill because they are ineligible for Medicaid. And I asked very simply, do you support that? Because if you even support those 2 million people removed, then you are just as guilty of kicking millions of people off their health care. People will die, all this rhetoric from Democrats. And if you don't, then you're saying no one can ever be removed ever from any health insurance program funded by taxpayers, or even if they're totally ineligible for it, because that's murder or something. So I never suggested, Abby pushed back and said that that's not the majority. I didn't say it was. My point was, it's not like 2,000 people, it's 2 million people. It's a significant percentage. And would Democrats even be okay with removing them? That's my question. The answer is no. And so the point of me bringing that up was simply to show there's really no cuts Democrats or liberal commentators in media would ever be okay with. So that's important to keep in context when you hear them hand-wringing about the Big Beautiful Bill. That was my point, but I just wanted to provide those receipts. Because once again, y'all, I do not just say shit. I always only make claims if I know they are true, factually speaking. Up next, guys, I want to play you a clip where we talked about Alligator Alcatraz, the very controversial federal detention facility, immigration facility in Florida, being managed by the state of Florida, where illegal immigrants are being detained in what some say are very bad conditions, what others say are perfectly normal conditions, temporarily before being deported. I thought this exchange was interesting. Let's listen to that.
We saw humans being held in cages, 32 people per cage, 3 toilets in each cage for these 32 people, and their drinking water comes from the toilet. And I gotta tell you, it was very emotional to be there for all of us, to hear that, and to see that our taxpayer money is being used for this stunt. This has nothing to do with what they tell you it is, and it's all a cruel stunt. Cruelty isn't just the point, it's the strategy.
These people are getting 3 hots in a cot. They're not being abused or not being tortured. They're getting better conditions than I had when my team lived in Afghanistan. And so the reality is, the idea that they are somehow being abused as people, having their humanity stripped from them, is a misnomer. I reject that. I haven't been to that one yet, but I've been to them before. I do not have to walk in the door to know what the requirements are for the federal.
An abomination.
According to
I talked to some of the members of Congress who went down there.
Let me just read.
Absolutely necessary.
Look, let me say one thing. First, the Trump administration says what you're saying. Okay, that's the official line. But the lawmakers who visited say other things. Here is one Venezuelan detainee who spoke to the Associated Press and said, the conditions in which we are living are inhuman. The man, who asked not to be identified for fear of reprisals, characterized the cells as zoo cages with 8 beds each, teeming with mosquitoes, crickets, and frogs. He says they're locked up 24 hours a day with no windows, no way to know the time. There have also been reports that the lights are on 24 hours a day, people can't sleep. And the implication here is that they want to create conditions that are so unpleasant that rather than be deported through a process, people just sign away their rights and get sent on a plane and go.
Abby, I'm actually horrified by what you just described, but I want to attach the biggest, because I think due process is a human right. I think that these are basic elements. Everyone should be treated with dignity in federal detention, but it's the biggest, if true, ever, because we need to actually verify this. I'm actually seeking to see if I can go this week. I live in Florida, and I'd like to report there myself. The Democratic lawmakers, you have on one hand the Trump administration officials saying it's fine, it's up to par. On the other hand, these Democrats, I don't really believe anything they say when it comes to Trump. I've had Democrats tell me that net neutrality would end the internet. I've had members of Congress, Ayanna Pressley, many others, say that Trump was bringing back segregation. Verbatim say that. So the credibility in the bank, I want some independent verification of what's going on in this facility.
They should let the media in.
I agree.
They should absolutely let the media in. Why aren't they letting the media in? Don't
Well,
you
they
think
have
that
let
there's
some
a
reporters
reason
in,
for
but
that?
they have let some reporters
you
in.
can
They
see
did a whole
pictures
walkthrough.
So this was interesting to me because, like I said in the clip, I think everybody should be treated humanely. And if the conditions at Alligator Alcatraz are not good or are, inhumane, I would condemn that totally and want that to be resolved, even if some of these people are terrible criminals. Some of them are just undocumented immigrants or illegal immigrants who haven't committed other crimes. But even if some of them are the worst of the worst, I still believe that there's a basic minimum standard for how people should be treated. But like I said on the show, I just don't know what to believe. And you have the Trump administration saying everything is fine and dandy here. DeSantis's people tell me, oh no, the conditions are totally up to scratch. And I'm not just going to blindly believe them. I mean, of course, that's what they're going to say, and it's possible they're being honest, but it's also possible they're not being honest and they're just kind of covering their asses. But of course, I also, like, when I asked Maria on the panel, okay, you're saying all this, what's your source for this? She says, well, Democratic members of Congress have told me. I'm like, yeah, okay, there we go with that. Like I said on the show, I can't take these people seriously because they've cried wolf so many times and they constantly twist everything and distort everything that maybe this time they're telling the truth, but maybe this time is another one of their tall tales. I really don't know what to believe. So like I told you guys, I would love to go visit Alligator Alcatraz. I have reached out to the Florida state government about obtaining press access. Have not heard back so far, but would be very interested in going there myself with a camera team and an interpreter and getting to the bottom of it myself and seeing what's really happening. And I do agree. I did point out they have allowed some media in, but I do think they should allow more. While we were on the immigration subject, I did make one point where, you guys know, I talked about this on the show a while ago. I don't support Trump's idea of mass deportation, deporting, 10 million people plus from the country, a lot of whom have been here for a long time, who have jobs, who are rooted in the community, some of whom were brought here by their parents illegally as very young children and really never chose to do it. I've always wanted to just deport, criminals, people abusing welfare, and then secure the border so the flow of illegal immigrants stops. It's one of the reasons I didn't support Trump, is I didn't fully support his immigration policies. But I did have to point out on the CNN show, in the context of a lot of people saying, like, I didn't vote for this, or this is too much, or whatever, when it comes to Trump deporting people and this stuff, this is what he was elected to do. This is what he promised to do. He was very explicit during the campaign. Mass deportations, not just criminals, not targeted deportations, mass deportations. And I listened and I believed him, but apparently some people didn't. And I did have to point that out on the show.
Donald Trump's numbers, approval numbers on immigration have gone down dramatically. And I think part of it is because the American people voted for criminals and gang members to be deported and to be prosecuted and to be gotten rid of. I agree with that. And what they are seeing is that it's legal permanent residents. What they are seeing is that it's mothers and fathers and children and teenagers and people who play with their kids at a school and people who work at farms that then we eat the food.
But Trump did promise to do exactly that.
He promised to do exactly that.
Was. I didn't support it, but he never said, or he may have said it a few times, but his actual platform was always mass deportation, not just the criminals. So when people say, I didn't vote for this, you actually kind of did.
I do stand by this, and it's one of the reasons why I've seen a few videos from, like, people interviewed who voted for Trump but then had an illegal immigrant or undocumented girlfriend get deported, or a business owner who voted for Trump, and then his workers are suddenly getting deported. And he's out here all outraged, like, I didn't vote for this, I didn't support this, or whatever. And I guess I have some sympathy with these people, but I'm also frustrated by them because I'm like, didn't you listen? This is what he said he would do. This is what people voted for. It's what he said over and over again. I give him credit. He's true to his word. He is attempting to do exactly that which he campaigned on. So I do find it frustrating when people pretend that he campaigned on the more moderate position and is suddenly betraying that and going more extreme. That's not what happened. We just should be honest about it. Now, I did want to also play you guys this one clip from a fun segment that they do to round out their shows, where you give kind of a random, non-political take. Here was mine.
I hope so.
Sonny needs to get working on the ice machines, because I have moved to 3 different apartments or homes in the last few years. Every single one. Wow. The ice maker in the refrigerator never works. The ice maker in this office doesn't work. No shade.
Don't call us out here, Brad, okay?
Right. I really do believe this with every fiber of my being, that ice machines in this country are just diabolically in states of disrepair, and we've got to figure out what's going on, because this is a serious problem. I need my iced coffee, people. What do you expect me to drink it hot in Miami? No, thank you. I'd like it iced, and I want my ice in my refrigerator to actually work. Is that too much to ask? Yeah, sure. People in the world are starving and dying, but if you think about it, the victim is really me, because my ice machines keep not working. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there for this episode of the Brad versus Everyone podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back in our normal setup, although that's still also sort of in flux in Miami tomorrow and the rest of the week. Do hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, yada, yada, yada. Send in your voice notes, and we'll talk again real soon.